right, welcome back to another episode of Running Through the A. Today we have women's basketball coach Mike Neighbors. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How y'all?
We're good. We're good.
I was just telling before this, I was just telling Coach Neighbors how it's his Christmas tree and he's got a guitar back there. Looking.
I like this to be a homey place. I'm in here quite a bit, so it better feel like home.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right, Coach. So let's start at the beginning. Growing up, what sports did you play? Let's start there.
Everything.
Everything.
We made games up. I lived in a neighborhood that had a lot of people that parents believed in putting them outside to play all day, from the time we woke up until well after dark. So anything that involved a ball, and sometimes we couldn't find a ball, we'd make up other games. So just about any organized sport you can imagine. We didn't have basketball in Greenwood until fourth grade. So I guess baseball was probably the first organized sport I ever started playing with T-ball, probably around, 8 or 9 years old. But by the time we got there, I knew the rules. I knew all those things. So just about any sport. I was terrible at swimming, so I would tell you that was probably the only sport I never competed in against somebody that was on a team. I'd swim against friends and cousins, but I was so bad at it that I just got out of that one. But in high school,
what were your favorite?
My favorite sport to play is baseball. I loved playing it. If I didn't like coaching it as much, I coached a little baseball for a while, but the sports I played in high school, I played football in junior high, then I played basketball, baseball, tennis in high school. So
you really did do it all, huh?
Well, not all, but I tried it. I dabbled. I was good at a lot of things and great at nothing.
You actually tried out baseball at Arkansas, didn't you?
I did. Coach DeBryan had a walk-on tryout. I'd played at Arkansas Fort Smith for a friend of his, Coach Crowder, and he encouraged us to go try out, and he set that up with Coach DeBryan, and I went out and gave it a wing, but it didn't work out for me. I ran out of talent long before I ran out of desire.
That's all right. I guess, how did you get into coaching? When did that start?
So I was going to school. I wanted to be a vet. I thought that was why I loved animals and thought that was what I wanted to do. Everybody in my family was in the education field, mainly high school coaches, teachers, principals, superintendents, librarians, you name it. They were all involved in the school. So I had a little pot of cousins, and we all kind of said to each other, let's do something other than go to be involved in schools. And ironically, I'm the only one that did, but they're all doctors and all kinds of things. But so I wanted to be a vet. I went to school for that. I took a bunch of sciences and chemistries and got ready to do an internship. And I realized that part of the job of a veterinarian is putting animals down when you can't save them. And I couldn't make it through that part of the
So it's a deal breaker.
It was a deal breaker for me. So I went back and met with my advisor. I went to school here, so I went over to my advisor and said, "Hey, what can I do?" And they said, "Well, you got enough credit hours to teach high school science and chemistry and biology. You'd probably just need, maybe a semester or two and do a student teaching, and you could be a high school teacher and a coach." So it kind of found me, I guess. Coaching found me, and I was doing my student teaching. I did it at Bentonville High School, and I got really lucky that I got in with a couple of coaches who really got me ready and gave me a lot of responsibility. And I got hired while I was doing my student teaching. So I went right in with a job there. And my first
at Bentonville
High School. Yeah.
Was that coaching guys or girls?
Well, neither to start.
Okay.
Because I was the youngest coach and I got hired late, I was the swim coach. Which, again, I just told you I can't swim, so that's kind of funny in and of itself. And also because the swim team practiced year round, from 4:30 a.m. until 7 a.m. every day, 4 days a week, all the way through the year. None of the other older coaches wanted to do that. And then I coached tennis as well, boys and girls tennis.
Did you really?
And I volunteered. I did volunteer to help with the high school boys. So I was working with them. My first year.
And that's basketball.
Yeah, and then the girls coach resigned at Christmas. He was retiring, and he had enough sick days that he built them up. So he just didn't come back after the Christmas break. And they opened the job up, and I was actually part of the hiring committee. I used to tour some of the people around that were interviewing for the job, and it was a lot of heavy hitters coming through there, but nobody took the job. And our principal told me that I was going to be the girls coach.
And how old were you then?
24.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he goes, well, yeah, you are. If you want to work here, you're going to do that. So there it was. And I fell in love with it. We went 1-24 that year too. We had a heck of a year, winning only one game, but I fell in love coaching girls basketball and coached in high school for another 6 years after that before Coach Blair hired me here as the director of ops.
Right. So after Russellville, you were back here?
Bentonville. No,
Bentonville.
I was at Bentonville, coached at Bentonville. We got better. That team was 1-24. The kids that were sophomores on that team, we played for a state title their senior year. So we kind of turned it around pretty quick.
There you go.
I did a little creative recruiting with Walmart, Walmart's help.
How did that? What do you mean
I
by
don't
that?
know. What's the statute of limitations on high school recruiting?
I think you're good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't like going 1-24. And I just happened to mention to one of my parents who was up and coming, I said, surely there's somebody across the country that's got a daughter that's like 6'3" or 6'4" and works in the jewelry department, somewhere in Walmart, right? That we can get up here. And about a week later, this guy called me and said, well, I found you one for every position. And we brought a few move-ins in and we got a little better. But it was mainly local kids. I mean, it wasn't all recruited. It was transfer portal. It was a thing back then in the late 90s. 94. It was not. Let's see what that. That'd been 94.
So you have experience with that,
bro? I saw Walmart NILs.
Yeah, that was one thing I told Coach Larry. So, well, you don't have any experience recruiting. And I said, maybe not, maybe not. But that's how that all worked out. But yeah, I coached there for 5 years, and then I moved to Cabot for 1 year. I coached there 99, 2000 or 98, 99. Then that was the summer that Coach Blair hired me here at Arkansas as his director of ops.
So what did your job entail as the director of ops?
Well, my first job was to make sure he had Diet Coke every day at the office and at practice and everything. So I had a really wise pawpaw that told me one time, pick up a broom and don't be afraid to do whatever anybody asks you to do, but whatever you're doing, be great at it. So I said, all right, Coach, I said, do you want Sonic ice, or do you want 7-Eleven ice, or do you want Wendy's ice? And you want it in a can, or do you want it out of the fountain? So I went all in. That was my first real job. Then I started driving him around. Back then, only certain coaches could travel, but anybody could drive him. So I would drive him to across the state to watch different players. And
now, was that an ego check though? Going from the head,
massive. Oh yeah,
that had to have been going from head coach to Diet Coke boy.
Yeah, and that was one of the more glamorous jobs. That's the one I'm talking about. I didn't even talk about the ones that weren't glamorous, but no, it was a massive ego blow because we'd had some pretty successful high school teams. Our team at Cabot, we'd gone to the state tournament, and I had friends and ego, and everybody said, "Oh, you're going to go work at the university, huh? Well, what are you doing?" And I think, I think they all thought I was going to be on the bench coaching and out there running drills and drawing up plays, and they figured that out pretty quick when they started calling me to get on the pass list turn the pass list in and stuff like that. But it was a massive blow to. I like to think I didn't have much of an ego to lose, but I know I did. It was hard for a while, but and I just said this to somebody the other day. My pawpaw was very good at teaching us about delayed gratification. Okay. And it's something, if I could gift a young person one thing, it would be that delayed gratification. And I knew I was going to do a lot of things that were, bottom of the chain, bottom of the ladder. I also took I went from making $76,000 to making 14. So I took a massive financial blow as well.
Yeah.
Did you know that was going to be part of getting to the next level, I guess?
Yeah.
Like that had to be a strategic, knowing you're a very strategic man. I've heard you talk a ton. Yeah. Was that all strategy though?
It was. No, it was that it goes hand in hand with what Pawpaw Neighbors would say, the delayed gratification and I did. I sat there and I had a heart attack at 29. We missed that little part too. I'm sitting there as a high school coach and I have a genetic defect in my heart that caused a heart attack at 29. And it was like, man, life is short. 29. So I'm not going to sit around and do something that's not my dream. Coaching in college was always my dream. I wanted to play in college. I wasn't good enough. So I said, if I'm going to do this, I got to go for it. And I did. I sat down. I looked at the Arkansas teachers' pay and said, okay, if I keep coaching high school basketball for the next 40 years, this is how much money I'm going to make. And if I take a $58,000 pay cut this year and next, but somewhere down the line, I'm going to do better. And people say you're not supposed to make decisions for money, and that's fine for some people. But in my situation, it was important to the people I was around, the people I was supporting, my family. So I needed to make a little bit of money, and it wasn't going to happen being a high school coach in the state of Arkansas, which is, we all know it's not the highest paid district for high school teachers. I think everybody ought to make $1 million a year for what they do, but that's not the way the system's set up. But it was strategic, and I knew going backwards was part of it, but it didn't make it any less hard. Going from making enough money to not making enough. I mean, my paycheck wasn't even 4 figures. Yeah. I was making 3 figures a month, so. But it was all worth it.
3-figure paycheck. There you go.
Yeah, I most months I'd bring home $644. I remember it like it was yesterday, but that was part of that was what it was going to take.
Part of the grind.
I didn't play. I didn't, ride a player. I didn't offer one. I had some good players, but I never said, "Hey, you got to hire me to get your player." That wasn't the way I wanted. I was going to do it through relationships, and then just try to work as hard as I could at being the best Diet Coke driver, car driver, pass list enter, whatever they asked me to do. I tried to. It was a great time to be here too, because you had, Vic Schaefer's his assistant coach, who, I would just watch Vic break down tape and do scouting reports and run practice, and
learned a lot. Yeah.
Amber Shirey was here, and I learned from her how to organize and do behind the scenes and do things, make yourself invaluable. Kelly Bond was a very young and up and coming recruiter, so I got to see how her mind worked, and I just was around a lot of great people that in all the other sports too. There were a number of Shauna Estes was here at the time, as an up and coming player and a young coach. So we were just around a lot of a really cool group of people at that time that got a chance to learn from.
That's awesome.
How many years did it take to get back into the coaching or assistant coaching part of things?
So I was with Coach Blair for that year, and then the summer of the next year, there was a coach at Tulsa who I got to know through Coach Blair's golf tournament. And she had a job opening at the University of Tulsa. Her name was Kathy Miller. And I'd literally just written her a handwritten note saying, thank you for playing in our golf tournament, when she had a job opening come up and she liked my handwriting. And he said, hey, let's find out more what this guy's about. I'm serious. I've had 3 jobs because of my handwriting. And it's pretty, I have good handwriting for a guy. That's what everybody says. But
right.
My grandmother was an English teacher. We used to have handwriting contests, but
I need to work on my handwriting.
Hey, it paid off.
So 2 years. To answer your question, 2 years. Okay. And I went over there as a young assistant, or not young anymore. I was starting to get a little bit older, but my first full-time job as a coach was at the University of Tulsa.
Was your first head coaching job Washington?
Yeah, it was. So you fast forward 14 years later, you move from Tulsa to Colorado. That coach, the coach I was with at Tulsa, got the job at Colorado. I went out there with her. I came back here for a year with Susie Gardner for 1 year, and that's when a friend of mine, Kevin McGuff, I had a job at Xavier University, and that was where he started really. All these other coaches, Coach Gardner and Coach McConnell and Coach Blair, helped me be an assistant coach, but Coach McGuff, Kevin, really started telling me you can be a head coach if you really want to, and these are some things you need to start doing. And I took his advice and followed. I worked with him at Xavier for 4 years, and we had really good teams there. And then he got the job at Washington. I wanted the job at Xavier really badly. That was probably the first head coaching job that I really felt like I deserved and had a shot to get, and was devastated when I did not. I almost quit. I almost didn't even move to Washington. I thought about staying here and doing something different with my life, but Kevin convinced me to move to Seattle. And 2 years later, he got his dream job at Ohio State, and I was kind of right place, right time guy. The AD at Washington really thought I had done some good things there, and he gave me a shot with no head coaching experience to take over Washington.
Okay, time out. Did you say that you came back here for a year?
I was here with Coach Gardner for a year.
I did not know that. That's something.
Yeah, I was at Colorado, and we were recruiting a couple of kids from Arkansas and having some success. And I think she thought we could, and we did. We ended up getting Whitney Zachariason committed here, and stayed here for that year. And then when she resigned, was kind of a little bit in limbo. I stayed with Coach Collin. This is a little side note. Coach Collin and I've talked about it on a podcast one time, but I stayed with Coach Collin for 2 weeks. He didn't think his whole staff was coming with him from Louisville when he took the job. He thought one of them would probably get the job at Louisville and a couple of them would stay. So he was like, hey, just hang out for a couple of weeks. I think I'm going to have something. And I really liked Tom. I knew he was going to do a good job. So I stuck around for a couple of weeks thinking I could get a coaching job. And then all of a sudden his whole staff came with him. And there wasn't an on-floor coaching job at this point. And my buddy Kevin called me, and he had not only a job, but a good job. Xavier, he had just got that thing rolling, and I got in there at the right time to be able to be a part of the success he built.
Oh, nice.
So we won 4 straight league championships and went to the Elite Eight and had really good success there. Got to coach a lot of great players, and he, like I said, he kind of started pushing me to do some head coaching things, and timing worked out great. But yeah, so between my 7 years here as an undergrad, which is a lot, but
I got 6, so it's all right.
Okay, how many hours? We may have to check. You may be close to my hours.
Yeah.
I only have 1 degree though. How many do you have?
1.
Oh, good.
I'm right there at the 6-year 1 degree.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I got
super
a lot
senior.
of yes,
super
exactly.
Senior.
COVID senior. Yeah. So I've worked here three separate occasions. I'll tell you this. I'm going to tell you how good our parking department is. When I came back and took the head coaching job here in 2017, when I went to get my parking pass, they hit me for about $60 in parking fees when I was a student.
Yeah.
They had them.
Transit is not my friend either.
They had me, man. I just didn't even argue. I said, great work. Y'all earned this $60. Keeping up with those records since 96. I said, here's gladly and interest. Great job. Well done.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Take it out your paycheck.
Yeah. First time I had enough money to pay for it.
Was the head coach at the University of Arkansas a dream job? And when did that become your dream job? At what point?
It was always that. It was always Arkansas. And I knew I couldn't get it. I mean, I wasn't going to leave. It didn't matter how many state championships I won at Bentonville. I wasn't going to replace Gary Blair. So I knew I was going to have to jump into coaching, and I knew, you're going to have to move around. You have to make a geography sacrifice, a family sacrifice, or a financial. And I had to do all 3. That's how bad I was. But had to make all three of those sacrifices and move around. But every decision I ever made, one of the last filters I would run it through would be, does this help me someday be a viable candidate at Arkansas? Me going here, does that, Coach Blair offered to hire me one time at Texas A&M, and when Vic got the job at Mississippi State, I could have gone there, but it was like, if I go to Mississippi State, is Arkansas really going to hire me back? I mean, within the league, that's kind of a hard thing to do. So I strategically tried to make every move improve my. I wanted the job when Jeff Long hired Jimmy Dykes. They interviewed me. I interviewed for it.
Oh, really?
I did. Yeah, they flew out. I was at Washington. I just finished my first year there, and I probably wasn't ready to be the head coach at Arkansas at that time, but it worked out fine. I gained a lot more experience, but they hired Coach Dykes instead. And then
weren't you like brutally honest too when you got hired at Washington?
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you've done your homework. Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, they asked me at the press conference, "Is this your dream job?" And I said, well, "Wait, can you clarify that question?" And they were like, well, "What do you mean?" I said, "It is a dream to be a head coach." I said,
right.
"But I'm anybody that does their research knows that Arkansas is my dream job. I've stated it too many times publicly. I say it in clinics. I write it in articles. There's an author now called Ray Dalio who wrote a book called Principles, and I didn't know the book wasn't out at this time, but he says when you state something, you be specific with it. So I said I just didn't want to be a head coach anywhere. I wanted to be the head coach at Arkansas.
So you said it. You ought to know.
I did. I said it, and like I said, it didn't endear me very much up there. And I know when they have that Final Four team back, they won't invite me. That's okay. Unless Plum will put her foot down and say we're not if he doesn't come. I don't know. I think she probably will. But
you think she'll fight for you?
I think she'll fight for me. Yeah, I think she'll fight for me. But I mean, it was again. When you have a heart attack at 29, you kind of take on a different perspective. And I'm not telling you I haven't told a lie since 29 because I have, but I haven't told very many. And I haven't told any that I think. I mean, I've told somebody they look good in the shirt, or it looks good on you, or something like that. But I've never substantially told a huge lie after that, because it's just not. And it's just too hard to live in that world. So, again, y'all will hear me talk about my pawpaw neighbors all the time, but he always said, it's better to be loved for who you are than love for somebody, or hated for who you are than love for something you're not. So, just be who you're going to be, and if people don't like it, then there's a reason. But you need to know when to shift. You need to know when to keep your mouth shut and not tell the truth.
Right.
You only tell the truth to people that you trust and that trust you. Until they trust you, you don't give any opinion. That's how I tell people all the time. If you want to know if I trust you, ask me my opinion on something. If you get the truth, I trust you. If you get some hodgepodge answer that, is not really critiquing your efforts, then I probably don't care what you think.
Yeah. So looking at your guitar back there, where did music pop into all this?
River City. It's above what used to be Doc Murdoch's. It's a skating rink now. I think it's a skating rink here. It used to be a place called River City. I was on a date with a girl in college, and we went to see a band. And I won't say the name of the band because the guy is still around. And she thought he was it, man. She was enamored with the guitarist. And I didn't think he was very hot or very good at guitar. But about 2 weeks later, they were dating. So I was like,
so you say you got to do that.
I'm like, if that's all it takes. So I've sold some baseball cards and went to a pawn shop up in Springdale and bought a guitar and started. My stepdad, who I call my father, but he's my stepdad, he played a little bit. Every time I would go home for Christmas, he'd teach me a chord. And I started banging around on that in college. Got good enough in college to play a few campfire songs with the guys. But then when YouTube came out, and you can literally type in "teach me how to play this song" on YouTube, and you can sit right in front of the camera and learn how to play it. So I've just started hanging around ever since I lost the girl to the band guy, and I've gotten progressively better at it over the years. I'm still not very good. I'm good enough.
See you playing with a band though.
I set in with a lot of bands. Yeah, I've
no, I'm talking about the University of Arkansas band.
I played with the Arkansas band a few years ago. We played a little journey at the game, a little way you want it. But yeah, I set in with 4 or 5 different bands. I played with some.
That's funny.
I got to play with Flatland Cavalry the other night backstage, and Fleto.
Oh, you still do it?
Oh no, yeah, I still play. I played last Saturday night with Flatland Cavalry after the show for probably about 30 minutes. It was great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, every single game on SEC Network at halftime, they show the clip of the country songs and trying to
with
guess.
the girls.
Yeah.
That's getting overplayed. Yeah, that's getting over. But I'm good enough that you can pick out a few songs, and you probably do a little name that tune karaoke behind me. But I'm not giving up my day job. Although I it's funny because all the musicians I've met, they all want to be coaches. And I think a lot of us coaches would trade jobs with those musicians too. Life on the road, and the excitement, and the rush. But the rush of playing up on stage in front of a crowd, it's addicting.
Sure.
I see why artists love what they do so much. Like I said, I'm just not talented. I'm good enough to bang around, but not good enough to make any money doing it.
You go on tour?
Oh no, nobody'd pay. I'd be really broke. Back to $300 a month maybe.
This might be a random question, but like you said, I did my homework, and you had an interesting look on what goals are, and how you changed it, goals versus standards. Can you explain that? Because that kind of blew my mind. Yeah, I grew up being a goal setter. Our coaches, everybody, all my family, goals are so important, and you need to write them down, and they need to be stretched, and you need to be able to measure them, and they need to be attainable. And I knew everything there was to know about goals, and they were a huge part of my personal life and professional life. And at the moment that it hit me was we were at the University of Washington, and our team goal was to go to the NCAA tournament because they hadn't been in a long time. And we made it. And we were sitting on the press conference, and I had 4 seniors and Kelsey Plum up there with me. That's our starters. And every one of my seniors said, "We're so glad to be here. We can't wait to play. This is a dream come true. We worked so hard to get here." And Plum leans over and she goes, "We're getting ready to get our ass kicked." And she was right. We did. We were a better seed. But she was right because we'd reached our goal. Our goal was to get there. Our goal never said anything whatsoever about going beyond it.
Yeah.
So that hit me in the face. Well, then that summer, a book lands in my lap by at this point in time, a very unknown author named Josh Metcalf and Jamie Gilbert co-wrote this book. It's called Burn Your Goals. And it just was like perfect timing. I was like, wait a second, these guys are onto something, because what they said, standards are goals, but they go a step further, and that they don't limit you like goals can. Like it did, and like it had done to us.
Yeah.
All year long. You know how it is as a team. You have mottos, you have on the back of T-shirts, you have it in your locker room, NCAA tournament or bust or whatever. Well, so that next year we went all the way through the exercise, and the conversation in the locker room was, well, we ought to win a game next year. Let's write it down. Let's win a game. And I said, well, is that stretched enough? And Plum goes, no, let's go to the Sweet 16. Let's go 2 steps further, which sounded great. But all along, I'd had this book in my back pocket. I knew what I was going to do. As soon as we wrote all those goals down, I set them in the trash can and I set them on fire. I burned them. Which you should not do in a team locker room at a state university. I learned fire hazard, big time in trouble there. And
Back to your statute of limitation. I think you're good.
I think I had to pay for part of the fine because the sprinklers went off and it ruined our carpet. But I think they took it out of my check. But nonetheless, it was worth it again because the visual was. I don't know if you can see, but I've got a picture of Mr. Miyagi over here from Karate Kid on my wall because that was a moment that was very visual. It was a wax on, wax off moment, you know? So the team said, well, what are we doing? I said, well, how about we just get rid of these goals and instead let's focus on all these different areas. And we had standards, how we were going to practice, how we were going to lift weights, how we were going to sleep. And let's just hold each other accountable to these standards and let's see how far we go. So sure enough, that's the year we went to the Final Four.
So you change the goals to standards and it makes all the difference.
And we have not gone back since. And it's just the simple answer is, you know, standards are really goals, but they're not limiting. Goals are great and you need to have them and it's okay to write them down. But like, you've got to find a way to not let it limit you. And that's to me what standards do. And maybe you can work them hand in hand, but I think you've got to focus on what you're going to do every single day. And then you break it down another step. You say, okay, well, what behaviors are we going to display to fulfill these standards? Not qualities, but everybody goes hard work. Okay, well, what does hard work mean? It means this. And you talk about the behaviors you have to give evidence of what hard work is. So, I don't know. It's like I say, it's not for everybody, but it works for us and the way we build things. And I think our kids carry it on. I've got a lot now. This is my 10th year as a head coach. So I've got kids who are getting on with their lives and they're like, Coach, I still use standards in my company and in our business and in what I do. And so it was very fortunate that I found that book from Josh and Jamie. I've become good friends with those guys because it really did change the trajectory of my thinking and change some things that we did.
Yeah. So Kelsey was one of those kind of like career changing for you players, completely changed the way your head kind of works.
No question. Yeah, no, she, I keep talking about things in my office. You keep putting it, but this is on my desk because she sent me a text. It says, "You stay, I stay." Talking about at Washington.
Right.
Wow.
So like,
what a cool way.
Her saying, because she got her letter of intent back. She's an incoming freshman. She could have gone anywhere in the country. And, we always laugh and talk about it. What would have happened if I hadn't stayed at Washington? I don't know. We laugh about it all the time.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But yeah, no. And she had to put up with me. I made a bunch of mistakes and we learned together. We spent 4 years. All 4 of her years there were my 4 years. And we had other players too. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't but she's kind of the one that's still playing.
Yeah.
Chantel's gone on to be a great coach and somebody that I've had on my staff, somebody that really, and Heather Corral was on that team that I've hired as a player. So, but yeah, Kelsey was a kid that, if she doesn't come to Washington, who knows? This job might not have happened. Probably wouldn't have happened. I mean, let's be 100% honest.
And then you've had Chelsea and Destiny here go to the WNBA. What was it like having Chelsea back around in Fayetteville a couple weeks ago?
It was fun. I got to take her over to walk-ons and show her spot up there on the mural at walk-ons. And I'm like, you realize you're next to D-Mac and Stacey Lewis. You're next to the and Corliss. I said, you were next to the icons. So it was great having her back. I always hate playing games against people that you got relationships with. It makes the games hard. But to see the fans respond to her and her interact and, it's a proud papa moment type thing. And it was awesome. And she's treated my 2 youngest kids, Barrett and Bowen, like little brothers. In fact, she always brings me a gift. It says little bro. So it's really, really, I'm proud of her and for her.
This season so far, the girls are 12-0, ranked 21. How big has Chrissy Carr been out of the transfer portal for you guys?
Well, we're not going to go into the transfer portal. We had kind of, again, I'm a little bit of a contrarian in all aspects of life. And everybody talking about how the portal you have to have it. I don't know that was the case, but when Sasha stepped away from basketball unexpectedly, we had a void. We had a leadership, we had an upperclassman void, we had a position void, we had a lot. And in talking to my returning players, they all agreed we needed somebody, but it needed to be the right person. It didn't, and player, but a combination of both. They had to understand who we were and how we did things, and then also fill that role that we needed. So we were very, very specific. Was very lucky that my wife had been an assistant coach at Kansas State when Chrissy played there. So we had a connection. So it was an easy phone call and an easy trip down, showed her what was important. And obviously her coming in, it filled a void that would have, we couldn't have with somebody that was on our roster. We'd have been taking somebody out of their role and trying to make them something maybe that they weren't. So she's been great. It's a hard thing to do to come in and be here for 7 months and make an impact, but I think she has. It's still a work in progress. She's still learning some things, but she's a very mature kid. She's easy to coach, and I think our kids as a group have done a great job opening their arms to her and welcoming her in. At the same time, helping her be a part of what they've helped establish here. So we're continuing to grow. We're not there yet. I mean, we've had good success. The schedule's obviously getting ready to flip around on us a little bit here with our next 3 games all being against ranked opponents. And then we jump into the SEC right off the bat with LSU. So our next 4 games we'll be an underdog. We'll be a 12-0 ranked team, but we'll still be an underdog in our next 4 games.
That's wild.
It is, but it's cool. It's cool. We're ready for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you guys are traveling to Creighton Saturday and then San Diego and then finally back home. How do we keep up this level of play through all of that?
I think goes back to something we kind of segue, just play to that same standard we've been playing to. Make the right decisions at the right time, and know it's going to be harder. We're gonna face deeper, more experienced teams. Creighton went to the Elite 8 last year. On the women's side, they've got everybody back, and they've added a few pieces. So we'll be a major underdog in Omaha on Saturday. But we just got to keep, again, focusing on every single possession's got the same value. No possession's worth more than another or any more important. And, again, when we do that, the result will take care of itself. But I think if we keep doing what we've got started, the results are going to – we're not going undefeated. Let's be honest. That's just not going to happen. But I'd like for us to try to be. I'd like for us to prepare to be and hope to be. But that's not our focus. That is not even the record. Is not anything we ever really talk about. It's how well did we play and how efficient are we being. So I think not letting some of those rankings and some of that talk because we weren't ranked in the 20s.
Yeah.
I was wondering about it. Does the O by your name, the 12 and O, do y'all talk about that at all?
Not really. I mean, I think it's ridiculous to think that the kids don't see it. I mean, we all have social media and it's there and we know what the rankings are about. So I don't think you should ever hide from it, but I want them to understand that it can be, was it Nick Saban that called it rat poison? I think that was a pretty good analogy, pretty good use of the language. But I don't think they really dwelled on it. I really don't. But I know they know it's there.
Yeah. They seem to be firing, everyone just seems to be firing on all cylinders right now and connecting and working together and doing their jobs. And it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, their roles have been identified. They've, for the most part, accepted the majority of their roles and fulfilled them. And, we all know the time's coming. We're going to face adversity, and we'll see how we react then. It's easy to have energy and like each other when you're winning. It gets hard when when stuff doesn't go your way, and that's kind of the measure of who we are. How do we react to each other, and how do we respond when things don't go our way? So I'm anxious to see do we have that in us. Not all teams do. We've had some moments that have been very adverse and we've gotten through it, but over the course, that's the thing about basketball. I talk to coaches in other sports, and 31 games, that's a lot. It's hard to stay razor sharp for 31 games.
Yeah.
Without having a letdown. And so but I do, like you said, I honestly don't think we've played as good as we can either. We've had nights when people had good nights, but I still think Sailor's got a better shooting night in her. I think Chrissy's got one. I think Sam can get more free throws. I think Matt can do the better defense. I think every single person has something they feel like they can do better still. And we haven't played our best big game all together at the same night. And quite frankly, I don't want that to happen until March. We've been peaking a little bit too early the last few years here. I think that's my fault because I didn't really adjust our schedule to the first 4 years I was at Washington. So we started later this year. We started 2 weeks later than we've ever started. And I think hopefully that'll keep us fresh and hopefully peaking at the right time this year instead of in late February.
So you're saying that everybody knows the roles. Can we get into the terms that you use? The dragon, the rabbit?
Yeah.
We can do that real quick and we can wrap this thing up. But so explain that.
It all became when I was an assistant coach. The question you always get asked when you go into a home with parents and players and recruits is, how do you see me fitting into your team? What position do you see me playing on the floor? And everybody will always say, oh, you're going to be a great point guard, or you're going to be a great 2 guard, or whatever. Yeah. And who knows what that means? So I said, we're going to change the names up. So I remember I had the conversation with Plum. I said, you're going to be the best racker that's ever played in this game.
Rack.
She went, what?
The hell's
you're
a
going to
racker?
be the best racker ever. She goes, the hell's that? So I got to tell her what it was. I got to explain to her exactly what we were going to ask of her. So when I talk to a player, I say, you're going to be a lock, or you're going to be a dragon, or you're going to be a rabbit. And they don't know what that means. They don't have any preconceived notion of, like it's football. Hey, you're going to be our quarterback. Okay, well, does that mean we run it or throw it? Who knows?
Yeah.
Are we going to, who knows what that, you're going to be our shortstop. Okay, well, where am I going to hit? Are you going to ask me to bunt? Just any sport you want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also wanted it just to be different. I don't want us to be cookie cutter exactly like everybody else. My players at Washington actually came up with the names.
Oh, okay.
I let them. Yeah. So like Chantel Osahor invented the word dragon. It was about the time Game of Thrones was coming out and dragons were really cool, and
they are really cool. Dragons will always be cool.
All dragons will always be cool. And you're the last phase. So you drag across the half court. You do. So she came up with dragon, and Katie Collier came up with rabbit. And
that's a rebounder, right? Is that what that is?
Yeah, but it's also the person that runs in transition and hides in holes. That was one thing Amina Williams said. Coach, I feel like I'm hiding in holes. And you gotta have big ears because you gotta really hear. They come up with all these little things now that they've used to fit it. But I don't know. It makes it ours.
That's an interesting pitch. Yeah, that's funny because everybody will come in with the same pitch. This is what you'll do. You'll be a point guard. And you already know that. But it's like, I'll be a rabbit. I'll be a rabbit at Arkansas.
What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? And I get to explain
I get to be a dragon?
Yeah, you get to explain it, and it changes.
And you define it yourself. You get to define it.
Absolutely. So, and I don't know. I don't mind being called a contrarian. I'm fine with that. It means I've thought through things. But honestly, too, want people to know I'm telling them the truth. I've thought through this. We are a little bit different. If you come here, we're going to do a lot of things differently. Not everything. I'm not just going to all of a sudden, if you say red, I say white, or I'm not that big of a contrarian, but I am not one that thinks you have to do something like everybody else does for it to be the best way. Right. Our way is the best way. And it's the only thing I know to believe in and teach. And I can't go to a clinic and Coach Muss runs so many great actions, but I can't teach that because that's not me.
Yeah.
And he's so active on social media with his team. That's not me. I'm going to post pictures of my kids doing stuff. That's me.
Yeah.
So,
back to that quote you said, better to be loved for who you are than hated for who you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that quote. Yeah.
And it's, and that's just the way it is. And everybody's different. There's a lot of different ways to do this. Coach Muss and I, we could not be more diametrically opposed, but it works for each of us. And I think that's what coaching is about, and finding what works for each kid and to get the best version of themselves. He does it with his team, and I think we do it with ours. And we have the same strategy, but different tactics.
Right.
And I think that's what makes sports great, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Cindy, do you have anything?
I don't think so. We're excited to get to watch there's some serious competition coming up.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're looking forward to the challenge.
Oh, yeah.
I have like a million more things, but I'm going to let it go. And maybe next time we can get into it.
Hopefully this is the debut, but not the only appearance ever. And
there we go.
I love the name of your podcast, Running Through the A. That's a big one. That means something to all of us that have been fans for a long time. So
thank you.
Well named, and good luck in all you do. But just let me know. We can continue anytime y'all want to.
Perfect.
Appreciate it, Mike.
So much.
You got it. All right.
Have a good one.
All right. Have a good one.